If you're interested, curious, right now we have folks in the hot seat. Tammy was the brave Amazonian fearless first, and right now Sam Hahn is in his flow, and I think Glenn has expressed interest in going after. So people are queuing up, but yeah, if you're curious about individuals and their work,
is there someplace somebody's storing all these videos?
Yes, yeah. Tammy and Sam are the default sort of archivists of the GCC video archive.
And are they on YouTube or someplace?
Yeah. Yeah, they're all on YouTube, and there's some work we could do in creating some playlists that would be useful. But they exist on YouTube. They're all unlisted, which is why the playlist is important.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. You can't find them unless you know where they are.
At the moment, yes.
Okay. Okay. I won't go looking for them then.
We can send you some links, Gene. I'll also report that Harry and Sam and I had a conversation about formats, wanting to kind of expand and maybe tighten up or experiment with different ways of creating formats and developing content together. And another thing that was exciting is that Jesse Henshaw from the Pattern Science and Commons movement watched a 3-part series that I did with Helmut Leitner, also with the Pattern Science community, and was excited about the format in terms of breaking down silos between thinkers and finding ways to have people know each other a little bit more before sharing their work. So I've reached back out to her to see if she wanted to do one with me. And then what she's really looking to do is have something that's shorter that does that. So I'd love to work with her to see what can be created and just to continue to innovate and jam on the process. So that's exciting.
What happened in your discussion about formats with Sam and Harry? Can you briefly tell?
Sure, and I'm just uploading it now too so that people can watch it. We were really, well, one of the things that we were talking about was the timeline of how we have the Saturdays set up means that it takes a month it took me a month to do my piece because it was 4 weeks. And that it would be great to be able to not only spread the load, but also create other times where we could do deeper dives. And we talked about ways to use this format to give people, 3 or 10 minutes, some amount of time to be able to really introduce themselves and their work, and to break those into segments that can be shorter and shareable. So that there's shorter digital artifacts that can introduce people to each other without having to meet them in person first, so that people can get a sense of who's in the spaces and to kind of quick start that process of what we've been doing in the barn raising. Harry, do you want to add your recollections?
Well, I can only talk from my own perception here. I feel a tension in that I love these conversations very much. They go very deep, and we're developing very interesting, deep connections without really having ever met each other. So that's great. But on the other hand, it's extremely time consuming. And some people, if you then also want to watch back, and you have like a 2-hour conversation and you have to rewatch it as another 2 hours. And if you watch it carefully, you stop and think about it. You spend a kind of almost half a day on it. And that just is one conversation. So it's an interesting format, and it's an extremely time-consuming format. And especially thinking about new people coming in, like Gene, he wants to know what are these people about, and it would be extremely handy if we talk in the video format, if there were like 2-minute trailers of everybody, that you basically know what you're about and what you. What was these 4 questions? Sam used or you used, Tammy? Could you say that? What you got and what was it?
What do you got? What do you need? What do you think? And what do we do? So it's a progression to kind of find out who's in the room, what people need, topics, looking at topics in different ways, and then taking action. What do we do?
So of course, it would be awesome if we had like those snippets, a film trailer is 2 minutes 40 seconds. I learned from Sam. Okay, so if we take that format and we have our own trailer, that would be helpful. So I love that idea, and I still enjoy, of course, these timeless conversations because they are, in their own sense, also very rare. Just taking time to really go deep in anything that emerges in the conversation. So I like both of them, but I would like some more speedy ways of informing myself about what people are about would be helpful. 2 minutes maybe.
Is there a GCC website?
Joshua is happy to facilitate that, and he's been working on it. But yeah, go for it, Harry.
Well, there's a URL for GCC. Sam has already collected those, but the website needs to be built. And like a few weeks ago, we talked about, okay, let's each have our own WordPress because Joshua is very handy at those, and then we kind of can interchange all kinds of links and stories and stuff. So and it would be an independent network next to the social media. And then, of course, we need the central address, and that would become the GCC website, which we already have a placeholder for, but no, it's not been built yet. And that's what Joshua was also about with all those pictures. He asked all of you to send to him.
Yeah. So then we would maybe be able to have playlists on there and these trailers of everyone on there.
Exactly.
And then you could go off from there to follow up.
Yes. So my image would be, oh, there's a lot of people. Oh, Lucy, where is she? Oh, she's in Sweden. She's doing this and that. Oh, let me watch a trailer. Yeah. And then, of course, you could also have links like all the conversation you were involved in or take snippets out of it.
That would be fantastic.
Yes.
Great. And then a connection to each person's blog also.
Yes, and then you got this intertwining of all kinds of content, and of course, with this WordPress would be your own blog, so you can talk about it and comment on it. And then the nice thing compared to Facebook, who's of course great of just having conversations, and that's also lovely because Facebook is extremely well at connecting all kind of stuff. But then we would have our place where I can find back and be the master of my own content and say, okay, this is what I want to share. And we can, so I think it's a lovely idea, but it's just in the very early days. The idea is there. I like the idea, but then we need to develop our technical skills and all. Ladies.
Harry, were you thinking about something like a wiki or?
Yeah, I love wikis, but not everybody is. I've always failed in dragging people into conversation over wiki, but you've done a lot of work in that as well, haven't you, Gene?
Which is why my wiki no longer exists.
Aha. Tell me, could you say a little more? That's interesting.
It's difficult to see the relationship between things within the wiki because you only get to look at a page. You don't get to look at the things that are related. Hi, Alex. Thanks for the invitation. Oh, he put his headphones on.
Yeah.
Thanks for the invitation, Alex.
Thumbs up.
So, it's beneficial for me anyway, because I seem to be more visual than linear, so that to see how a particular thing relates to several other things that are relevant to it, as opposed to simply saying, well, here's a bunch of links, but when I go to that link, I only get to look at a page. So I've been working on something for the last 2.5 years or so that's an absolute disaster, but at least I think I got some thoughts figured out about how to put it together.
Yeah, this totally resonates, Gene, because I'm also in a group here in the Netherlands that's trying to grasp. We're kind of conceptualizing an interface that's about humans connecting, and then you can define the humans through each other, and you see the quality of the connection, and then you can see visually what people are about. It's using those all those graphs is just with balls flying around. What's the name of it? I forgot it.
Thought space?
No, thought space. No,
Kumu?
tensor graphs or something like that. Heat maps.
It's also Kumu or
Kumu kind of stuff. Yes.
Yeah.
If anybody wants, I can show you what we're building with a group in Michigan for a generative local community network.
Yeah, please do, Gene, because I think we would love to learn about how to scale ourselves online in a decent way and not just...
Do you want to see it now?
Yeah, why not? It's an open conversation. I don't mind. It depends if...
I mean, only take a couple of minutes, not...
You can go in the middle down. The green button is share screen.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, that kind of stuff. What's the name?
So what they're doing is, in certain communities, trying to figure out how to develop the community, but there are lots of people involved, and there are lots of different kinds of things, so that they have annual meetings, and there are people that attend, but then there are also organizations and communities and issues and methods, and they're different colors, so that if you expand this and you look at a particular approach or method, you can click this and you can find out that here are people in different areas that are actually involved in doing action research and they're doing them in different communities. But I'm not looking at the communities at the moment. So for the individuals, we're keeping track of a profile of the individual with a bunch of data points about those individuals. For methods, we have discussions associated with the methods. And it's simply trying to figure out how to build an environment that allows individuals to go here and say, this is the problem I'm having. Who are the people in this network that are working on the same kind of thing, so I can connect with them quickly, as opposed to starting from scratch on my own. So we're currently trying to figure out how to put this together and make it meaningful to the participants. So that's, I mean, I could go into it deeper, but that's all I need to do at the moment, I think.
I love it, and it's you're somewhat on the same quest as my group here in the Netherlands is as well. And we try to combine it with natural language processing, because people are doing that, so that you can extract all this stuff from any document.
Gene, what are you using? What are you using for this as a tool?
That was in Kumu.
Yeah,
That's in Kumu,
right? Which is nice, because you can build as many things as you want for free as long as you make them public. So, and if you want lots and lots of people to be involved in it, then public is a good thing, and you can decide which people you want to allow to actually edit the content and continue to evolve the structure while giving public access to everyone.
That'd be awesome, something like that, especially also to show like new ideas, so that somebody could, like if I take this Earth Girl example, Lucy and Tammy connected by Earth Girl, and then Doug, or you could see what ideas are budding, and that would be really fun.
And the nice thing that as long as I'm here, let me show you this one also. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to come here and monopolize the session.
Not at all. Not at all.
That was our secret plan, Gene.
Oh, is that it?
Yes.
I've been sucked in without knowing it.
Absolutely.
This is
Alex,
leaving.
You'll get your T-shirt and hat and antenna in the mail.
This is something called the Perspectives Project, and it contains a ton of stuff that's all connected together. And after building this for a couple of years, I realized that it just puts people off because it puts them in overload. So what I finally came to realize was that I need to allow people to connect with a certain part based upon what they're interested in. So if I'm interested in systems archetypes, I can go here and it tells me about what an archetype is. And if I click and hold this, it then says, okay, I can look at what the archetypes are. And if I click and hold this, it tells me what the goal-seeking archetype and the exponential growth archetype are, and I can continue to go off in this direction. And then if I'm really overly anxious, I can simply go here and click and say, show me all the archetypes and the connections between them. Or I can go back here and look at a learning program for enabling a better tomorrow. And this is an overview of the program. And this is the connection to creating the future and situation and continue to walk the path to follow the unfolding of this particular learning thread, as opposed to being overloaded with all of it at once, which is a bit much. Okay? So the response has been much better now that I've gone back and said, okay, when you show up, you're presented with a blank screen, and you look and you say, okay, I'm interested in the foundation of how all this stuff is put together. So it talks about battling the jungle, and I can look at this, and about creating insights, and then about we have a problem, and then relationships 101. And I'm about to color the links so it's easy to see which threads go to which threads. So it's a lot of trial and learning in terms of how to put together a story threaded together step by step, so that, I said once upon a time I made a connection between a model and a play. If you go to the play, you see the relationships unfold between the actors from one act to another. And when you walk away from the play at the end, you take the story with you, and you comprehend what happened over an hour or 2 hours. Suppose the playwright walked up to you, handed you the script, and 5 minutes later said, what do you think? You don't have a prayer of being able to consume or understand the play in that form. And that's essentially what I was doing to people. I was inflicting all of this content on them that I was so wedded to. I was just, the way we get with things that we create. I was asking people to eat an elephant in one bite, and it just doesn't work. So
I think the affliction of tools, technology, and solutions, and the last thing you mentioned, which is creators or authors' attachments to them as a sort of extension, expression from an identity and ego place, because we do love and bond with our creations, right? And my partner and I have spent a lot of time, energy thinking about sort of how to do that piece differently from a human being centered, experientially centered place and priority. And when you turn that telescope around, and what you got to organically, I think, is headed in the right direction. When you turn that telescope around, the place to start is in the infinite variety and unique individual experience of any and all potential comers that you could see serving. And different people are going to come with different lenses of their own. They're going to come with different preferences, different perceptual acuities in terms of, somebody who's data and text based and somebody who's graphically based in terms of their metacognitive set point. And so, the vision we have and the energy that we sort of try to inject in this kind of discussion is on the front end, coming in the door, the burden and responsibility is on me if I have your map, the greater, grander map. The burden's on me as the creator of that to come up with 5,000 ways to Sunday through the eyes of potential visitors to access, use, derive benefit from it on their terms in the way they would like to, as opposed to the way I would like to serve it to them. And when you do that inversion, it really changes things a lot. It doesn't change or diminish the work on the back end to have everything set up that you want to make sure they have a complete resource offering. But at the end of the day, all that matters to them are the one or two nodes or pieces of the puzzle that they're interested in within the context, the moment, and the experiential reality of that curiosity, application, problem, situation that they're in the middle of grappling with or experiencing or digging into. So they've experienced the pull of climate change or, permaculture or fight with my neighbor over their dog crapping in my yard. That's the thing that's burning bright for them that drives them to the search for solution. And so getting them to something that satisfies and maps to their hunger or pain or thing in that moment is on the shoulders of the offeror, if that makes sense. It's sort of our job to provide all of those mechanisms, and on an extrapolated basis, because this is the part that I think a lot of us in a privileged ghetto way forget. The vast bulk of the global population is technologically illiterate, in some cases illiterate, and do not have the internal tools, knowledge, expertise, means. How do we serve them? How do we enable them to also play, to also engage, to also access and participate and reach and contribute? So when you expand the mandate on that scale, because it's all of us or none of us, if we're going to avoid an extinction event, it raises the bar even higher.
I think that was cool, Gene, your play analogy. I think that's a really awesome way of describing the process we want to aim for. Because if you can put a story in someone's head, then you've done the job, haven't you?
Well, and I've recently come to realize from a few other connections that the way that I told stories was also wrong. The Heath brothers have written a number of good books about change, but one of their last ones called Moments, which I don't recommend that you read because the book isn't that good. The essence of the book is how to get people to trip over the truth. And the essence of the book says you need a clear insight, compressed in time, that you enable the audience to discover themselves, which I tied back to a quote from Spencer Johnson in The 1 Minute Salesperson, which said, while almost everyone loves to buy, no one likes to be sold. And I developed 1,000 videos selling stuff to people that they weren't interested in buying. So that it's an endless array of trial and learning that you go through, not understanding or not having a sense of a goal, but more of a direction in what it is that you're trying to accomplish, so that you continue to question your own assumptions. I have no answers, just more and more questions all the time.
Do you feel you've made progress? Do you feel like with realizing these things that you've been not doing as you said, have you made progress?
The feedback gives me a sense that I'm making progress.
There is a feeling for me about some of this that it's sort of like to do with advertising, finding the thing that people will like and respond to. And I wonder where that truth comes in that you're talking about. I mean, people tripping over the truth, which suddenly they discover themselves. And, there's, I'm wondering about that majority of people that Doug is talking about who need to somehow partake in this. Do they? Why don't we listen to them, what they want to do? They may want none of this stuff that we're producing or that is being produced here. They may want it. But is the truth something that we need to listen to their truth more? Or maybe just leave them alone and allow them to, the worst of it is that we're just, every time we go there, we're exploiting, we're taking from them, basically. That's what ends up happening in our relationship to underdeveloped countries.
If we approach it from the perspective of not knowing the answer, and as you said, you go and you listen to them and you learn from them and combine that with your understanding to help them move forward in a manner that makes sense to them. One of the things in the Moments book, and in a video, was the underdeveloped countries trying to get them to use latrines. Right? I mean, they don't have houses, they don't have bathrooms. And the aid workers would go to all these areas and they would build latrines, but nobody would use them. All right? They defecated all over the village wherever they felt like it when it was time. And they would take the latrines apart and use the parts for something else. And, all right? So they finally discovered a way to get the villagers to connect with what it was that they were doing to themselves. And they were horrified. And they were anxious to go build the latrines. But it took them a long time to figure out how to get the villagers to understand from their perspective what it was that they were doing to themselves that horrified them, they essentially realized that they were eating shit on a day-to-day basis and decided that they absolutely had to have latrines. One of the other examples is the CEO of a company who was having real problems getting the participants in the, or the employees in the company to participate in the company investment program where he was doing matches to what they put in their savings account. So he held a meeting with the people and he dumped this whole pile of money on the table. And he said, this is the money that didn't go into your account last year because you didn't participate. Do you want this money in my pocket or your pocket? And that connected so that people realized what it was that they were giving away or giving up simply because they weren't participating. Now, there were lots of other approaches that he could have taken which probably wouldn't have worked. You know, simply trying to convince them that they ought to participate. They needed to see something that they connected with and from a visceral perspective that would get them to engage. And so I think that the summary of the book Moments in terms of figuring out a clear insight, so to get people to have aha moments, right? I cannot change your mind. The best I can possibly do is to provoke thought. Because I finally came to a realization that people always do exactly what makes the most amount of sense to them in the context of the moment based on their current understanding. I've argued that point with a lot of people for many years, yet no one has yet convinced me that it's not always true. Even when people fabricate these ideas about things that they do that don't make any sense, at the point that they're doing them purposely to not make sense, which makes sense to them. And so if I accept that, then when I see you doing something that apparently makes no sense, I have to stop and tell myself that what you're doing makes sense to you. And it's not because of something you don't understand, it's because of something I don't understand. So I have to approach and investigate and ask questions and this is an opportunity to learn and understand why it is that it makes sense to you. And then maybe what I thought before actually no longer makes sense to me. I know it's very convoluted.
Yeah, I encapsulate a lot of that in the construct of unconditional love. And Alex, I know you want to say something, but unconditional love isn't loving somebody in the way you want to love them. It's loving them in the way they want to be loved.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking along the lines of the people who advise executives in the marketing and advertising industry, and that's one of the blokes is Benjamin T. Russell. Has anyone heard of him?
No.
In this meme, it says seduction isn't making someone do what they don't want to do. It's enticing someone into doing what they secretly want to do already.
Let's say that again.
Seduction isn't making someone do what they don't want to do. It's enticing them into doing what they secretly want to do already.
Okay.
Yeah,
The art of seduction.
After 9 years advertising, I know how that works. I can secretly entice you not to cook tonight and buy a ready-made dinner. But if it's short and long-term perspectives, I kind of tease you into. Just satisfy yourself now. Instant gratification, Alex. Good for you.
So, Gene, I love your work and how you presented it, and I know that's just the tiniest thumbnail sketch. But I think I just want to look at the purpose of it for a moment. And what I see the purpose is to be able to create a map where you can see who's doing what where. And that's one of the things that I'm really motivated to participate in, and to look at different forms and frames to do that. Because that's, for me, a big part of what we need to do is to be able to see the information easily. And I loved that you pointed to the fact that, okay, let's get people to follow the trail so they're not in complete overwhelm when they're looking at the big picture of all of what is. And I guess I'm curious about a couple of things. The last one you showed us, you've been working on for a couple of years. The Kumu one is less time. And where are they at in the development, and what is needed?
They're both of them were done in Kumu.
Okay, yeah.
I only have two environments that I work in. I work in Kumu and Insight Maker. Kumu is doing for qualitative relationship models, and Insight Maker is doing for simulation models. And they're both web-based and free, which makes it easy to access. And anytime you want to share something with somebody else, you just send them a URL. What also makes them unbelievably useful is both of them have the capacity to enable you to clone anything you can look at. So I worked on this model for 2.5 years. You can go find it on the web, and you can clone a copy of it that belongs to you, and you can do anything you want with it as a basis for evolving it in some other direction.
2.5 years to 2.5 seconds?
Yep. Insight Maker, which Scott Fort Monroe, one of the smartest people I've ever known, wrote by himself in 5 years, currently has about 110,000 users, and there's over 100,000 models in the database. The Kumu users are actually evolving much quicker than that, so that they're rapidly approaching 100,000 models in their database that are freely accessible. So, sorry, what was the question? I got a lot.
Yeah, no. I just wanted to land in the center of the purpose and the need.
Yeah, so I posted a link to the video that I did for a meeting last year called "I Used to Be a Systems Thinker, but fortunately I evolved," or something, or I got better, whatever. So the link is in the chat window, and it's only about 11 minutes long. The thoughts continue to evolve. I mean, there are several thousand models and methods that claim to embrace the systems paradigm. And who's got time to learn all that stuff? The question was, how do I get beyond all of this complexity to get back to something that people can comprehend and understand how to do in a relatively short period of time? And somebody invited me to do a 4-hour workshop at a gathering. And I forgot that it was a workshop. So I built a 4-hour presentation, which was really dumb. And then at breakfast, I realized that it was a workshop, not a presentation. So in a period of about 5 minutes, I created a 4-hour workshop. Probably the best workshop I've ever done in my life, where 40 people in a period of 4 hours absolutely amazed themselves at what they were capable of doing and wondered why I was there. And so that it helped me understand that it's not all these models and methods. It's extremely simple. It's all about relationships and their implications. That's it. That's why I don't talk to people about systems thinking anymore, because it's got all this jargon associated with it that puts people off. You essentially go to people and say, you know, everything that you've learned about how you understand things throughout your entire life is wrong. You're really just stupid. Let me tell you how you ought to think. Okay? And right after I tell you you're stupid, how much of what I have to say are you likely to pay attention to? Yeah, okay. So the question is, I don't tell you anything. I ask you questions about stuff so that you look at a situation, and I look at the situation you're looking at, and I ask you questions about how you think about this and this, and if you do this, well, then what happens if you do that? What's the difference between the novice chess player and the grandmaster? Well, it's a lot of experience, but it's also the extent to which they think about the implications of the implications of the implications. And you move this piece, and he says, mate in 5 moves. Because he's thought about all of the alternatives and the implications of the implications, as opposed to the way most people think about situations. And as soon as they look at a problem and they think they have the answer, they stop thinking. They don't think about, well, if we go ahead and do that, who are the people that are influenced or affected that weren't affected before we did that, and what's their response to that likely to be? And, you know, just what are the implications of the actions that I'm about to take, as opposed to just simply addressing the problem. And I don't know where I was going with this answer either. So I get lost sometimes. Mostly I get lost. Yes, Alex.
It doesn't matter how simple you explain something, there's always a couple of people in the audience who don't understand it.
It's we have to understand them, not they have to understand us. We have to be able to listen.
Yes, well, we also need a way to kind of make sense of what other people are saying. Like, I very much like what Gene brings, because yesterday I literally spent, out of pure interest and commitment, half a day on understanding what Heine is about. I watched half of his hot seat video from 2 years ago, and I tried to engage with him, and he, as a result of that, he kind of, literally throws libraries at me, stuff I cannot comprehend, I cannot process, I cannot even read without understanding it, because it's just, I am totally overwhelmed. And so I very much like the approach that we kind of have to, so I'm wondering, and that's why Gene at this moment is a godsend, where do we start in connecting and having a conversation? What's the point where I can meet you and start asking questions, and how do I do this without basically sacrificing a week of my attention until somebody else is kind of empty and ready to kind of answer questions, stuff like that.
I just posted a link in the chat to another video, which I think is essentially the essence of my current state of thought, which evolved from a number of different places, though I had developed a certified systems thinker program in Kumu, and a number of people went through the program, and they gave me such rave reviews that I thought they were blowing smoke at me. And though a couple of them got to, oh, you were one of them? A couple of them got to.
I was one of them. It to me is, it still stands as an unbelievably brilliant evolutionary leap of what a book is. It's really meta book. It's experiential, and it's manipulative, and it's learning by doing. And And
oh, thank you. Though
Yeah.
a couple of people at the end came back and said, okay, now how do I sell systems thinking to my organization? And I want to come unglued, okay?
Hence the reason I'm sort of like this hobby horse advocate for, if we don't transcend selling and transacting, quid pro quo and exchange, and recognize intrinsic contribution of value as an act that is both always in its moment giving and receiving, but is not transactional, that qualitative shift, if we don't figure out how to navigate and make that happen, we're just playing the past forward. Like, we never can escape that specific gravity of that transactional selling and buying model. Mm-hmm. And it's a killer. It just is like this 3,000-pound cognitive gorilla that prevents 99.9% of the people from being able to even, crack the door to new.
You were trying to get in here, Lucy?
Yeah, I'm just a bit lost. Who is them?
Who's?
Who? It sounds to me like there's two sides: someone who has something to offer, or who thinks they have a solution, and someone who has a problem and maybe needs something. So this all seems like it could work, could apply in some contexts and not in others, kind of based on what Anna was saying. So do you guys have some example that that's in the back of your mind as you're talking, or is this very general? Or?
Well, I'll take what Gene showed us as an example, right? The greater, grander map, which from a human digestion standpoint is not valuable or helpful, but intrinsically is the container for a whole bunch of stuff that on a selected, relevant, contextualized basis, a whole bunch of different people will find things of value they're looking for in, right? Mm-hmm. So his act of creating that, and offering the means to access that is a contributive act, right? To a collective ecosystemic world. And people in that world, each to their own, within their context, their question or curiosity or whatever pull they're experiencing, if landing and enabled to connect to that, may find what is helpful to them, is of value to them. Now, that's not transactional between Gene and that individual at that time. It may be even completely asynchronous and completely geographically distributed. It's not a one-to-one deal, right?
So it's a facilitation tool in a way, facilitating connections.
And solutions and answers and information and references and community, to the extent it's like, here are this group of people that you could reach out to that are all asking the same question you are.
And presumably the community has actually helped to construct this map, because they are what the map is about. So they've had some input into it. Maybe Gene is evolving a method or a paradigm, but it needs the people to be part of the construction, for me. I mean, because then their questions will be part of the map.
They're co-creating.
Yes, I agree with that. Because if I develop the map represents my perspective. And to be useful to other people, it has to contain perspectives that other people can relate to. which have to come from other people because I'm biased based upon all of my experience. I mean, as much as I try not to be, I still end up being biased.
Well, it's not bias, it's just personal. It's just you're a human being like everybody else.
It's bounded. It's bounded.
Okay. Bounded.
Yeah.
And we've all got separate experiences and separate ambitions and separate tastes, but there's something that links us all together, and that is a commonality, an area of commonality. Now, if you can let the AI go through our histories and tweets and Facebook posts and comments and discover who we are, then the AI can link us together automatically and say, okay, here's your friend, here's your group of friends. We found them all. There's one in Ukraine, there's one in New Zealand, there's one in Ireland, there's one in the Philippines, and they all think the way you do. They've all got interests similar to yours, objections similar to yours, and dreams, ambitions and dreams and hopes similar to yours.
What a nightmare.
Once you've got all those people together in the same room, wow.
That's assuming that friends are people who think like you or have the same sort of opinions. I mean, actually, it doesn't often happen that way. Or it often happens in other ways.
Yeah, and you get bored with the person who's talking about the things you love. You want to hear something interesting, something different.
Yeah.
And if you and I agreed on everything, would we ever need to talk?
That's it.
Yeah, I think the truth is in the middle. You have to be different enough and comparable enough to have a conversation.
Yeah, so, but if there's a group of people and they're all focusing on separate problems, they won't solve one of the problems. But if they all focus on the same problem, they might come up with a solution. So in that sense, it might be a productive exercise, hopefully.
I agree with you, Alex, that we do have something in common. But if you think that it's possible to grasp that in some way through a machine, then, well, that may be the underlying aim of a lot of digital work. But yeah, I don't see that it's necessary or possible.
Well, corporations are already using it to find subscribers for their mainstream media. The New York Times uses artificial intelligence and algorithms. They check on what you've been
they're
doing.
discovering is not really what is basic to human beings. What they're discovering is consumerist predilections that will help to sell their products.
They want to understand us. They want to understand our biases. They know what makes us
What
tick.
they call understanding is not what I would call understanding, or what you would call understanding. When you talk about having something in common, I don't think you're talking about the fact that we both buy the same brand, or we're both looking for boots or something.
Actually, when I discovered they knew more about me than I knew about myself, it was quite spooky.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's a lot there. I really feel that I lean more towards, in terms of machine learning, augmented intelligence rather than artificial, because others have heard me say it before. I don't think that intelligence resides within consciousness, not within an algorithm. And I think that it's important for us to figure out how to think together and be together. And the maps of what we can create, those are great handles to be able to point ourselves towards areas of coherence or interest. And I guess what I'm really wanting to land on is, what's the purpose of it all? And so for me, the purpose is to be awake and aware in the systems collapse that we're experiencing, and find intelligent ways to be able to transition from the bounded corporate dominant world that we're in, that is trying to sell everything and extrapolate everything into an abstract form of accounting, to recognition of the living expression of what we know we need to do because we are alive. And we are looking at this in our myriad different ways. We're looking at the systems collapse that we're in and knowing that we need to do something. So connecting people and information. I love the maps that you're creating, Gene. I think, you know, in the GCC, it'd be amazing to have a map where we had, you know, who are we and what do we all bring to the table? What do we need and what are we going to do about it? In kind of an intelligent expression of who we are and what we bring to the table. And so, yeah, back to purpose. The purpose for me is to connect and progress our work and to have our eyes open and connect as people, and make it understandable for others and take it one step at a time. There's a lot of potential that needs to be realized, and that's in part through communicating ourselves, what we see and what we can do.
So if you all send me a note as to what you think you want to see in the map, what you want the map to accomplish, I'll create a draft for you by tomorrow, and you can look at it and we'll take it from there.
That's amazing. What are the data points? I mean, we can build on what we see, but what would be some data points that you've already used that we can kind of build on as a frame?
And I'll give you the link to the Skills Fest map so that you can look at it and wander around in it. It's not an answer, but it's something to look at and think about. Okay. I just put the link in the chat window.
That's awesome. I also just wanted to throw in here, tomorrow is our Friday experiments. And what I would love to do tomorrow, if people are into it, I'd love to hear feedback, is to do these short pieces with everyone, and have people say, you know, my name. Sorry, I've got some feedback going on here. To do a little, this is who I am and what I want to bring to the GCC, so we can start that practice and get some of these, you know, 2 to 3 minute downloads from people of what they're bringing to the table, so we can have also this a little short piece of video that can be perhaps added to the map, or also something that we're creating that is using this process as well as the map that Gene can create for us. And thank you so much. What a generous offer.
I noticed there were millions.
Gene, you're muted.
I noticed there were hundreds of groups, and they weren't organised, but the groups, local groups, tend to have an effect on the outcomes of general elections. And when small local groups grow to a reasonable size, a couple of hundred people, they become a force to be reckoned with. When there's a tight election coming up, they can cause change. They call them change agents. So these groups, there's hundreds of them. They similar objectives, but they're not really very well interconnected. They're divided. And you know what happens when things are divided. Division kills infrastructure and kills incentive. So a way to unite all those small groups that seem to be all clamouring for the same objective, that is sustainability, and it would be a good map to have, a good map for people to contribute to, whatever they can contribute. Links, they can contribute links and ideas and stories, and content.
I just posted another link. It's to a conceptual map developed by Capra, based upon Plan 3.0 by Lester Brown, in terms of world problems, relationships amongst them, which is, you know, one that I found that I have considered to be at a level of detail so it's not completely overwhelming. So the description in the Facebook group that talks about the times for all the meetings, all the times say CET. Though I think from what I learned today that you're actually on CEST.
We might have messed up the summer change time seasons. Doug, you're muted.
Because I was trying to figure out whether I was supposed to show up at 4 or 5, and I showed up at 4, and it turned out to be the right time.
I think you and I are on the same zone. So Thursdays is 11, Fridays is 4, Saturdays for us is 4 in the afternoon, and Sundays is 11 in the morning.
Yeah, Thursday and Sunday at the same time. It shows.
Is Friday 4 or 5? Now I'm getting confused. It's 5 Eastern.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Now, Gene, the last link you posted, I'm getting a 404. Is anybody else having a challenge resolving that?
Yeah, I can't see it either.
For some reason, it's either
try
incomplete.
Try that one.
Okay.
I forget which things I got saved as private and which ones are public, and sometimes I send out the wrong one.
No problem. No problem.
So it's...
Yeah, that works.
Okay, you said that it's 11 a.m. on Friday and Sunday.
Thursday and Sunday.
Thursday and Sunday, yeah.
Okay. And the other one?
5 o'clock Friday and 4 o'clock Saturday.
Okay, I got it.
And the links change depending on who's hosting them. So I do Thursday, Friday, and Sam does Saturday, Sunday. So they're different links.
Yeah, I noticed on the page it shows different links.
Okay. So Gene, one of the things that comes up for me, and I'm sort of like very tuned in to the idea of the emergent driving process in these spaces, and in relation to your offer, which is, you know, send me the things you would have in a map and I'll construct a, you know, set up a map or a starting place. And I wonder whether the pre-step of, you know, send me what you want in it isn't something worth talking about in terms of that's really sort of ground zero on the co-creation of the map to be, right? Which is, you know, all the different contributions that different people may have in terms of what they would want. So one person is focused on those membership profiles. Another person is focused on Tammy's video intros. Another person is focused on like issues, a list of issues in the world, you know, subject matter domains that are, you know, burning bright. Another person is interested in, you know, specific projects. Another is organizations. Another is other groups. And so in the process of enabling folks to contribute to the map that all of us would find value in, could we figure out that process in an inclusive way? You know, and a low-tech way. So, I mean, not something to put a lot of work and programming into, but like, you know, Google Forms and Google Polls and whatever. Create a mechanism for everybody that would be interested in weighing in to contribute. And then use that as the starting place for actually evolving out, you know, the map itself, which could then be populated by everybody. So I throw that out because there's this tendency, I find this tendency in collaborative endeavor for people to always jump in at chapter 2 or 3 or 4. And they presume and skip over chapter 1. That is the enabling chapter that affords everybody an opportunity to play.
Yeah.
I understood exactly what you meant. Somebody in this circle may or may not have a clue what you're talking about. And then everybody else can fall in spaces in between the two. And I just don't want to, the idea is to co-create, is to have it truly be a co-created and emergent thing that's all inclusive. But that also, you know, the thing in my frame is that leverages and maximizes all of the human generative potential that exists here. Like every person here has stuff to bring and contribute to that. And how do we make sure we enable everybody to do it?
We let them all play with the map.
Well, before the map exists, you need that list, right? No?
No.
No? Okay.
The map already exists. I just posted the link for it.
Okay. Cool. Can you, I'm not seeing it in my, wait, let me try toggling my chat.
Oh, maybe I went to everyone. Try that. Okay, for those of you who don't have a Kumu account yet, I would encourage you to create one because you need one to be able to post to the map, and you will need one later to actually work on the map. Those people who want to work on the map should be able to, and those who simply want to post comments to guide other people for working on the map should be able to do that. Right?
Cool.
I understood, like Doug, that we were going to send you the data that you were going to put in the map.
Yeah, and now you can post it in the discussion that's in the map instead of sending it to me.
Okay, and for that we need a Kumu account.
Yes. And
I literally just set mine up in like 2 seconds, so that was easy.
Do you have to have a credit card?
no, it's free.
You just got an account, Lucy? You're saying it's
Yeah,
really simple?
I just went to the website, name, email address, password, and bang, you're in.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, it's Kumu, Anna, it's kumu.io.
How do you spell Kumu?
KUMU.io.
Okay.
But if you click on the link that Gene put in the chat, it'll, oh, you're on a tablet, so you can't click on
Yeah.
links in chat, right? Okay,
That's okay. I've got it. Got the address now. So
cool.
Well, this is exciting.
So as you begin to post things will begin to show up on the map. And as other people decide that they want to actually curate the map, we will see that you get access to it and enough of an introduction so that you're not tremendously dangerous. And that takes about 15 minutes. All right. This is one of the simplest environments to use. It is almost as simple as a pencil and piece of paper, though people have a tendency to get distracted by all of the shiny things, all right? Because this application is so deep that I can't even remember how to use all the pieces of it. It's just unbelievable what they've done with it. But to do valuable things with it takes about 15 minutes.
Awesome.
Okay.
So do we pick up with, oh, you want to do, Tammy, you were going to do the video intros tomorrow?
Well, that's what I was thinking. It might be, I think it'd be great for us to just test that. So that would be, I'll record in speaker view, but it would be great if another person could, or I can start and stop recording and someone else can record in speaker view, so that I'm just capturing from with just that person on screen what they're saying, so they're just presenting themselves, and then stopping and starting the recording so they're already pre-edited, and then we can just upload them. Well, then people can review how they've presented themselves and decide if that's the take that they want to use to express themselves, or if they would like to do it again in another session.
Gene, does Kumu, I guess Kumu enables link embedding. It doesn't actually act as a container where you could embed things, files and stuff, but you can embed links at nodes that would take people to
yeah, you can create links. You can embed videos, Vimeo, YouTube. All of the editing is done in Markdown. So the entire Markdown formatting definition is available. And let me go ahead and show this for a moment, okay? So I only spent a couple of minutes putting this together, but this will get cleaned up later today sometime. But when you go here to this discussion, and Lucy's already been here, if you post to this discussion, you will end up being identified as a member of the discussion, and anything else that gets posted to the discussion will end up in your mailbox. If you don't want to post to the discussion, but you want to follow it, the first time that you go there, this will say, follow this issue. And if you click on follow this issue, then it's just like you posted to the issue, and everything that gets posted there will end up in your mailbox. And if you decide at some point in the future that you don't want the stuff coming to your mailbox anymore, you can go there and simply say, mute this issue, and you won't get followed any longer. Now, the other thing that's nice about the environment is I can create an element. Let me just call this stuff. All right. To create another element, I hold down the Alt key and drag off, and this is more stuff. All right. So that this is how easy it is to create new pieces. All right. And for every piece that gets created, it's got a title, a type, a description, and the ability to add tags. That's true for the elements, the connections, title, type, description, and tags. And it's also true for something called loops, but they're not actually loops. A loop is simply two or more connections that are tied together. So I'll just call this loop. So this is essentially a loop. And what it is that loop is defined to be what's connected to this and this. So those are the only three things in the Kumu environment. There are elements, there are connections, and there are loops. And you have now had enough of an introduction to Kumu to be dangerous. I'm serious.
Understand?
So that you click on an item, you come over here and you edit the description. You can add a type, tags, and you can also identify other elements if once you decide what kinds of things that you want to turn these into, so that you can have people and you can have activities and you can have places and whatever different kinds of things that you want to keep track of in the environment. Okay? So for those people who decide that you actually want to help curate the environment, I will provide one-on-one sessions for whatever time you need. Okay?
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Gene.
You're most welcome.
This is really cool.
It's great.
I created a map in ThoughtSpace, very similar system. But then after my trial period expired, if I wanted to continue, I had to pay a subscription fee to the service.
Yeah, Alex, I played around with ThoughtSpace for quite some time, and it didn't give me the capacity to create enough stuff in the space for what I really wanted to accomplish. I mean, I was really attracted to the metaphor. It was like seductive. And until I figured out that I couldn't capture the content that I wanted to capture. I ended up having to put the content someplace else and link to it. In terms of in the Kumu environment, I can have as many discussions in this project that I want to, so that we could have 25 different discussions in this project on different elements within the environment if we wanted to. You could have a discussion on the loop or a discussion on an element, so that if there's a certain set of 4 or 5 relationships that 2 or 3 people are trying to sort out, you could create a discussion just for those people trying to sort that piece out. The nice thing about that is that it captures the thought processes that went on behind the scenes for historical purposes. So if somebody said, how'd you get here? You can, I worked on some group development efforts that went on for years, and they got to the point where we simply couldn't make any progress anymore because the members of the group would change, and we would spend months bringing the new people up to speed, trying to get them to the point we had arrived at after a couple of years at interactive thought amongst us. And it was because we never built the history that would allow a new person to catch up in a short period of time to where we were, so we could continue to move forward.
That's an important need of this group.
So when the new person shows up, you say, go read this, and then come back. Okay.
What we're looking at there is a automatic rabbit hole borer.
Good one, Alex.
How do you two know each other, Gene and Alex? Have you worked together before, or have you just bumped into each other in a similar space as this? Or
We've been on the systems website.
There was a couple of systems thinking related discussion groups in LinkedIn that started in 2010, but LinkedIn has changed so many things that the discussion groups are not discussion groups anymore. They're waste paper baskets where people drop stuff, and people don't read them, and nobody. I mean, we used to have discussions that had 1,000 posts on them that went on for months and months and months. And now that most of the stuff, if you go there and look, nobody posts to it because it doesn't send you a message and tell you that somebody posted to it, and the things that get posted to don't bubble to the top, so you can't follow it. I think they were just trying to cut down traffic, and so.
But that's a really big piece, signaling. I find that I've defaulted my time and attention to the places where I was able to enable signaling such that it would ping me. New post, new thread, addition, new this, new that. That if that affordance wasn't there, I would lose track.
Oh, the thing that I didn't mention about Kumu is once you start getting stuff in your mailbox from a discussion, there's a link in it that says reply to this email or view it on Kumu. So you can go to the discussion on Kumu, or you can just do a reply to the message and it will put it in the discussion where it goes. So you don't actually have to go to Kumu to respond to somebody else's post.
That's
Awesome.
great.
I already have mail in my mailbox from Harry and Doug and Lucy.
Yeah, beware what you ask for.
I'll have to watch the video because I don't know how to get stuff in. I'm clicking around.
I could easily send you a few messages, Harry, or something. Because it took like 2 seconds. Later I could do that if that's helpful.
What? I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. Harry?
You put 3 of those balls with stuff in them. Can you put pictures in those balls?
Yes.
Okay, that's helpful. I'm still kind of.
But the thing about Kumu is the pictures are all the same size.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay.
The balls are all the same size, right?
Well, they don't. They don't have to be. Okay.
But the system constrains it to the same size in how it presents it. Is that right?
It can.
Okay.
I had to laugh when I saw Gertraud's suggestion that they put a time zone in for the EST and the PST and the CET, and also one for Australia. Australia's got quite a few time zones.
Yeah.
It's a lot bigger than most people believe.
Yeah.
It looks rather small looking from here. I can't hardly see it.
In terms of the previous question about pictures and sizes, I just posted another link to an early model that Jeff did in Kumu called the PayPal Mafia, people associated with PayPal. And the pictures used to be bigger based upon the net worth of the individuals. I think he changed something. This was originally set up so that the size of the individual's images were dependent upon their net worth.
Yeah, that kind of stuff would be lovely. It doesn't show that it's all the same now.
Yeah. So apparently they changed something since the last time I was there. But, okay.
So noting that I think some of this group is going to move on to Enlivening Edge and whatever other sessions are out there, maybe we can just do a little wrap up together.
Well, I love it. It adds something to my learning list, but I think if you could get some oversight in Kumu, that would be very helpful. And I'm very happy, and thank you so much, Gene, for your generosity here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, it's been great having new eyes, new blood to input in here. Yeah, it feels good. Thank you for being here. And
the opportunity to sort of play together in this platform and co-create and sort of catalyzing that. Much appreciated.
Yeah, it's really fun to have somebody new turn up who like comes bearing a gift. Thank you.
There's not many of the people I invited have showed up. I remember putting out a request to all the friends of my Facebook friends, and they sent out 200 at a time, but I had over 1,000 Facebook friends. And then there was other groups. There's the United Humanity group, and I invited everybody there to the GCC. So it's good to see that at least one person turned up.
How could I have turned down your invitation, Alex?
Sam, do you want to, we haven't heard from you. Do you want to have a quick hello, goodbye?
Hello, I just dropped by for the last few minutes. And Gene, that stuff sounds interesting. I actually have a very long but dormant account on Kumu, so I just went back there this morning and have been playing around with it while you've been speaking. More later. Thanks.
I love this, bringing new people in and really being able to get a sense of what, I think we only have a thumbnail of what you bring, Gene, but I'm grateful to, especially for your offer to help us to create these kind of maps. And yeah, this feels like great progress.
Well, I've enjoyed it tremendously because I'm retired and now I only work 80 hours a week. So, and have been for, I don't know, 15 years now. And I get stale for the same reasons some of the comments that you made, from interacting with the same people on an ongoing basis, week after week after week. It just, and it's been really good to just connect with some new people and find a place where I thought I could add some utility or value. But to Alex's point, you have to figure out how to keep it evolving. And I've found that you need to enable people to engage in a meaningful way so that they feel as though they bring value to the puzzle and aren't wasting their time. Right? I think it have been in a number of communities which have just sort of atrophied in a very short period of time because it wasn't going anywhere. Okay, I mean, people couldn't connect with feeling like they were actually evolving or creating something that was going somewhere. It was like, oh, let's have another group grope on Friday, okay? And that's all it was. It was one group grope after another, and it just got old. And then the people just stopped showing up, including me. And I think it's an aspect that it's appropriate to understand and figure out how to deal with. Okay? Everybody should bring different drugs week after week.
I think this group is different, Gene, in some way, because, well, this particular one I'm talking about, not the Saturday or the Friday or whatever. We don't have an agenda, and we're not actually going anywhere. We're really discovering ourselves here. And that's the never-ending process. It feels like we can really be ourselves here in a way that is very appealing. And we get closer as a group because of that. It's nice to have new blood, but it's not essential. Actually, we're finding new things about ourselves here all the time.
So it's the same people, yet the exchange is refreshing. So how many of these sessions have there been? That many?
Yeah, a lot.
Well, we've been meeting since the end of September weekly, and I think the sessions were first 2 a week, and then at some point in the late fall, we moved to 4. So trying to remember the timelines, but something like that. So we've been 9 months.
What would you consider an appropriate size for this type of collective?
This is what we've got. This is what I think anyway.
20 people would be too many?
I think 20 people might be pushing the envelope, but I'd like to test it.
I can only get 9 on my screen, that's why.
Well, one of the really nice things about what are we using? About Zoom is you can break people out into subgroups really easy. And you know, if lots of people show up, you could figure out several different topics, and you 5 people go talk about this and come back and report in 20 minutes or something. So
it doesn't feel good to me. It feels much too manipulated and controlled, and I don't know what. I just love this, what we have.
Well, what feels manipulated and controlled?
Well, breaking into subgroups, go talk about this topic. I mean, yeah, probably very productive, but just different from this group, which is, in a sense, anarchic, which we were talking about before.
Though, would this be the same if 20 people showed up, Anna?
It wouldn't be for me, because I can only get 9 on my screen.
Okay.
You must not change the subject.
I that whole scaling thing, and I participate in a lot of generative conversations where there is a breakout into small groups and then a reconvening, and a breakout into small groups and a reconvening. And I really, I think in a traditional old paradigm, industrial paradigm development construct, that kind of thing, then you're sort of breaking out groups that are project or specific dimension based in a multi-dimension group undertaking. That sort of kind of constructivist thing, I think, has its place, has its time, when context and intention are defined and collectively adopted, agreed. I really think that volitional piece on the front end of what is the intention, what is the expectation, why are we here, to Tammy's and Sam's thing before, what's the purpose, why are we here? I think getting that explicit express consent and agreement is a huge part of the deal to map to success. And I think conversely, without that definition, the impact and effect of executing those kinds of structures or moves on folks that are not fully aware participants can tend to be really interestingly disruptive and disconnecting, or run that risk. So I think context is a huge part. Individual awareness and understanding and onboarding is a huge part. And defining agenda or lack thereof, like these Thursday open sessions in the EE are exactly that. There's just nothing preconceived or predefined coming in. And what I refer to as the sprouting of session Friday and session Saturday and session Sunday happened out of a specific sub-theme or sub-agenda or some goal that sort of said, that's a thing, that's its own thing. And from an expectation orientation going in standpoint, that warrants setting up and giving it its own time, its own, event. So I'm not sure, I'm less sure about the breaking out into small groups through this medium from a 20-person group into smaller working groups within the four corners of a session, but I'm a big believer in sprouting additional sessions where subgroups and very focused focused agendas are the agenda, and everybody shows up at the designated place and time to dig in. Makes more sense to me. But that's just sort of my two. I gotta hop because I got another one of these to jump into, and I gotta let the dogs out because they're sitting here with their legs crossed. But Gene, it's great to see you here, and wonderful and fun to play with you with one of the tools you're fluent in your mastery, domain of mastery brought here. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye, all.
I go to IL. Yeah, I'm also same call as Alan. So.
Me too. Dog walking.
Me too.
Thanks, Jean. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Well,